Prynhawn da Gynhadledd. I'm delighted to be with you here in Llangollen. Our conference is a time to rally together, to gather as a party, as people who believe in a cause. But most importantly, we gather here as friends. Our assembly group has had a difficult few months as one of our number, one of our good friends, was given the news of a cancer diagnosis. At the age of just 33, Steffan Lewis is one of the intellectual giants of our movement. He can't be with us in person today, but we've just heard his message, and it's a message that can inspire us. Sometimes in our personal lives, and often in our politics, we have to face difficulties. The entire history of Wales has been a challenge in one way or another. Our very existence and recognition as a nation and as a collective endeavour has been fraught with obstacles and challenges. But strength comes from struggle. What matters isn't whether we face discord or darkness, but how we respond and how we persevere. What matters during hard times is resilience, hope, optimism, working together, trusting each other and pulling through as a team, as one. That goes for us as a nation and as a party and as individuals. Steffan has told us how the support from Plaid Cymru has been an immense source of strength to him as he continues to recover. The Plaid Cymru conference is a platform that he's relished since he was a teenager, so it's appropriate for this conference to leave no doubt. Steffan Lewis, you are a credit to your party, your country, and all who love you, and we are with you all the way. Conference, before we move on, I want to convey an important message. When we talk about building a new nation, we talk about Wales in the world. Many people have made their homes in our country and have contributed to the Welsh national story. From time to time, these communities and others in different parts of the world appeal to us in Plaid Cymru for our solidarity and support. I, like many other Assembly members, have been asked by members of the Kurdish community in Wales to demonstrate such support by making a statement on the crisis in Afrin. The Kurds in Rojava have defended their homeland, their values and their culture against the so-called Islamic State. But the government of Turkey and their affiliated armed gangs have conducted a despicable assault on Afrin. Hundreds of civilians have died, including the family members of people living in Wales. Against the silence of NATO and the silence of the West, the very least we can do is say this. Plaid Cymru supports the rights of the Kurds, and to the UK government, shame on you for abandoning the Kurdish people. Conference, how often do you hear people say that politicians like to talk but don't deliver? I am a firm believer that actions speak louder than words. Gwynalf Williams said that if Wales is to live, then we must act. There aren't many issues more central to Plaid Cymru than building our nation. We want decisions about Wales to be made in Wales because we believe people here know what's best for their own country. A crucial principle for us as the Brexit process has unfolded is that powers over devolved areas must come back to Wales. They should be absolutely not intercepted by Westminster. But as things stand, the EU withdrawal bill will be used to further concentrate power at Westminster. Plaid Cymru warned this back in 2016, that this power grab would take place. And this month, UK government officials have admitted in a leaked memo that what we predicted is happening. Those powers go right to the heart of our devolved settlement, which has been upheld democratically in 2 referendums. They include the regulation of vast areas of our environment and natural resources, the principles upon which we combat climate change, even how we label Welsh products. The power grab freezes us out from deciding the rules on farming in the UK market, with Wales and Scotland only being consulted. In the EU, member states decide how the EU-wide rules work, but in the UK, Wales can only dream of such dignity. Being treated as a consultee, treating our National Assembly, our Parliament, like a local council. This situation is about putting more control in the hands of the Tories in Westminster, and we will resist. The test for Plaid Cymru is not just to talk about the power grab, but to do something about it. Actions speak louder than words. In my conference speech in Caernarfon last autumn, I said that Wales needed a continuity bill. Legislation in our National Assembly could ensure that we take those powers back for ourselves. The Labour Welsh Government didn't agree. The First Minister said his preference was to amend the UK's EU withdrawal bill instead. Did he think, perhaps, that if Wales played the role of loyal servant, we would be rewarded? Guess what? Surprise, surprise. The Westminster Government didn't listen. They went ahead and published amendments without the agreement of the Celtic nations. So we, in Plaid Cymru, took action. Steffan Lewis laid his motion proposing a continuity bill with unanimous support from all the parties. And weeks later, the emergency bill was introduced. Such is the gravity of the UK government's failure. Even UKIP Assembly members are supporting the continuity bill. And this week, Plaid Cymru Assembly members have shaped and strengthened the bill with their own amendments, several of which have now passed into Welsh law. For the first time since the One Wales government, Wales has challenged Westminster and acted to loosen the British state's power over our nation. It's obvious now that in the British state, you don't get rewards for good behaviour. We haven't achieved this by holding the Labour government's hand or by acting as some kind of prop to them. We've done it by challenge, by persuasion, and by hard work. The lesson is this: Plaid Cymru's action has made Wales matter. But this is only the beginning in this battle for the future of Welsh democracy. We expect a challenge to Wales and to Scotland in the courts. But I will say this to the Labour Welsh Government: you have been given leverage. You have been given a constitutional tool to defend Wales that you didn't have before. Do your job. Stand up for Wales. And for the sake of Wales, I will be here to make sure you do not back down. Gynhadledd, nid dim ond yn y cynulliad, mae Plaid Cymru yn amddiffyn bydd Cymru. Dyfodol ein dinasyddiaeth Ewropeaidd.
It is the future of our European citizenship that is one of the results of Brexit that people are discussing most. Our right to live, work, study across the biggest trading bloc in the world. And this is not just about the European Union either. That citizenship allows us to live and work in a number of European countries outside of the Union as well. But Westminster wishes to take our European citizenship away from us, to take away the rights, the opportunities that people have fought for and that opens so many doors to us. One generation of politicians wants to reduce the rights of the next generation. But Plaid Cymru, members of Parliament, are trying to stop them. The youth of today want to be a part of the Europe of the future, and Plaid Cymru is the only party that puts that on the agenda. Using research conducted by Jill Evans, Plaid Cymru's European Member of Parliament, Westminster MPs held an opposition debate contending that continuous European citizenship should be an integral part of UK citizens. And the first time in history the Plaid Cymru motion passed in Westminster, but it won't be the last time. They are working to ensure that the people who want to call themselves Welsh Europeans can do so. And this shows how Plaid Cymru is achieving things for our country. This is not a wasted vote. It is a vote for Wales. To all of the Westminster team, we really appreciate your work. Thank you very much.
Conference Westminster is not only using Brexit to strip us of our parliament and our identity, our economy faces a threat like no other. Plaid Cymru has been consistent in advocating membership of the single market and the customs union. It's the only sensible way forward. Just like when Norway voted narrowly against joining the EU, a national consensus, a coming together to bridge the divide, kept Norway in the single market but out of the European Union. During the referendum, the Leave campaign leaders told us we could be like Norway. How have the goalposts been allowed to shift so much in 2 years? The most extreme Tories want a low-regulation, neoliberal tax haven. Last week, the House of Commons Northern Ireland Affairs Committee concluded that there is no technical solution in the world that would create an invisible border on Ireland. There is not a single example anywhere of the UK government's policy of a border based only on technology. This foolish course of action will have implications very close to home, here in the north of Wales. Caergybi, Holyhead, is the main Welsh port for passengers and trade with Ireland and is busier than any other UK port when it comes to movement with Ireland. 400,000 lorries pass through that port every year. 70% of all Irish cargo comes through Wales. And locally, hundreds of jobs are generated by the port. The economic consequences will be felt right across our country. Anyone who cares about the Welsh economy and Welsh jobs should have real concerns about leaving the single market. In 2017, our trade in goods with the EU increased. The direct opposite is true for countries outside Europe. Exports are one of the few real strengths of the Welsh economy, be it at Airbus and Toyota just down the road from Llangollen, or Tata Steel and Bridgend Ford in the south. We are only in overall surplus due to the exports which go to the EU single market. We have to build on our export economy, not allow the conditions which would see it crash. The question we must ask and then answer is, what can we do about it? We know that as things stand, the UK government and its Labour opposition both intend to proceed with Brexit. The Tories are committed to the hardest, most damaging form of Brexit. And Westminster Labour is happy to serve it up to them on a platter. I will not let this country sleepwalk into a future based on even more London rule. Trusting Theresa May and her cabinet to do what's right for Wales is not an option. It is still possible, because of the EU stance, that a special relationship will be made for Ireland. Scotland has the option of calling an independence referendum. So what can Wales do? I've previously said that Wales should have a referendum of our own if the UK ceases to exist with a yes vote to create an independent Scotland. But saying that is not enough. We have to act. The Continuity Bill shows what we can do when Wales takes action. But that Continuity Bill will only protect our existing powers. It doesn't deal with any future constitutional shake-up. I want Plaid Cymru to lead the way in asking people in Wales what our future looks like. Following today's emergency motion, the Party of Wales will put forward enabling legislation in our National Assembly. The aim will be to provide for a Welsh referendum on the constitutional implications of the final EU deal for Wales. Let the people decide if the deal developed on our behalf is a good one for Wales. To mean anything, the enabling legislation will require the support of other political parties. The question on the ballot paper will also reflect the final deal, something which is far from having been reached. But the important first step is to begin the legislative process and to send a message that the days of well-behaved Wales, of compliant Wales, are over. We will decide our own future. And to anyone sceptical of our ability to speak for ourselves as a country, I say this. We are facing a turning point in British history. Do we seriously want Wales to simply accept whatever is decided for us by Westminster? If people in Scotland and the north of Ireland make serious decisions about their futures, do we really want Wales to be silent? We may well be used to Wales being ignored by Westminster, but we can't just blame others if we're not prepared to act ourselves. We, as a Welsh nation, regardless of party politics, have failed to grab the attention and the respect of the UK media and decision makers. We have to make Wales matter by asserting our national interests. So in the weeks to come, Plaid Cymru will act. People expect their political leadership to stand up for Wales. As our country's future is on the line, Plaid Cymru will make sure that Wales gets a say. Friends, pumped up on the imperialist steroids of Brexit, Westminster may be trying to deny us our national parliament and fundamentally our identity. But this conference, this party, is about building a new nation and an idea that they can never take away from us. Devolution has given us tools, the tools we need to begin crafting this new nation, to improve the standards of living of our people. That's why it's nothing short of an outrage that after almost 20 years of devolution, so little progress has been made in building our nation. It has implications for our resilience, our ability to cope when circumstances are difficult or when Westminster governments cut our budgets. Life as a citizen in Wales is too tough for too many. My inbox and my surgeries are full of people looking for assistance to navigate a cold, bureaucratic and uncaring system. Not only are people trying to access housing, healthcare, justice, or struggling against the nightmare that is universal credit, they are also seeking job opportunities and asking how they can start a business. They are looking for hope. And there are many more people who have given up seeking help or representation from politicians. If you allow people to be ground down as part of a failing economic model which can no longer deliver the basics, let alone people's aspirations, then it should come as no surprise when people vote against the status quo. When we look towards the next Welsh elections and the next Welsh Government, the status quo will be Labour Party rule, the same old Labour Party establishment. And it is Plaid Cymru that offers an alternative. It's essential that we in Plaid Cymru lead a change of government. To do this, we must go further than ever before in breaking down the myths about Welsh politics. We have to overcome the situation where a third of people believe the Welsh NHS was run by the Tories, or where, at the last election, less than a quarter of people knew that Wales was run by a Labour government. That's why we are supporting the campaign by Cymdeithas Araith and Elfed Wyn Jones for the devolution of broadcasting. We are going to need all hands on deck to make sure people know the true picture as to who runs our services and everything else in this country. There is a positive opportunity now, several years away from the next Welsh general election, to have those conversations and the two-way dialogue about the change we need, to outline a vision of the alternative Wales we could build. And that's why I took action. 2 months ago, I launched a publication as a way of starting this conversation. The aim is to engage with people the length and breadth of our nation, to share our ideas, but also to hear theirs. So many say that no one is offering a vision in politics today. So much is driven by what we're against. In this publication, I've outlined what we can be for. The central idea is empowering people as individuals and communities, and also empowering our Parliament, so it has all the tools it needs to solve the problems people face. Empowering people like a young woman I know in the Rhondda. She didn't see the point of voting. What difference does it make, she said. She works shifts, 14-hour days, a temporary contract, a job she doesn't want to do. She has great potential, so far unfulfilled. She has thought about leaving Wales because there's no proper jobs here. And she's scared of what the future holds, but feels too cut off to affect things. Well, to all the people out there in this position, to all those who think there is no alternative, let me tell you, there is a better way. Far too many of us feel powerless, like we have no control over our lives and futures. Change comes through action. With action, we can show people that we can make a difference. We believe that no community, no family, no person should be left behind. That every one of us has a part to play in creating an alternative to this. Plaid Cymru's vision is for a Wales where power is distributed to people, not centralised and hoarded by the state, whether that be the British state or the government in Wales. By taking control of our natural resources and building resilience against climate change, by encouraging and supporting people to start their own business or enterprise, by boosting people's skills and ensuring that we can respond to changes on the horizon with automation, by retaining our young people and graduates in Wales, and by guaranteeing a thriving future for the Welsh language. It's a plan to enable wealth creation and to keep more of that wealth in Wales. The change we need doesn't just discuss those ideas, it provides a means for political change. Following the vote to leave the European Union and votes for populism in Europe and America, it's clear for some people the status quo is not an option. For too many people, politics has left them behind. Plaid Cymru wants to bring people together and reach out to people, and also to those most hit by austerity. Everyone has a role to play in the Wales I want to build. Take someone like my father. He is one of the most intelligent people I know. He was told by his teacher not to even bother sitting his 11 plus, and of course, he didn't go to university. Yet all my life, my dad has made damn sure that I can justify my political positions. He's played the role of devil's advocate, he's tested me really hard, and he still does to this day. Now, people like him were denied too many chances, and they don't get enough attention from politicians. It's time government gave equal focus to those who have not and will not go to university. People who care about self-reliance and personal independence and want a government that is on their side. Plaid Cymru will build a Wales where no one is left behind. If you want to get the skills to earn your own way, you want a Plaid Cymru government. If you want to start your own business or an apprenticeship that offers real routes to work and a chance to provide for your family, you want a Plaid Cymru government. If you want to see a country where it doesn't matter what class you came from, what your parents do, whether you want to go to university or not, then you want a Plaid Cymru government. Conference, I've talked about Plaid Cymru distributing power to individuals and communities. Power needs to be devolved within Wales. I want to see an end to this unbalanced relationship between core and periphery that has been disastrous for Wales within the British state. This is why Plaid Cymru has advocated that the new Transport Authority, Football Museum, National Development Bank and other bodies are spread across the country. This agenda means that we can strengthen Welsh as a community language through measures involving local government and public sector jobs. And it also means ensuring that those parts of Cardiff and the former coalfield, which are amongst the poorest areas of the country, can benefit from a sustainable regional approach. A move from Labour's centralism to Plaid Cymru's decentralist all Wales agenda is more relevant than ever for our NHS. I can announce that a Plaid Cymru government will support Swansea Medical School's aspiration to expand and open new regional campuses in the west of Wales. When combined with our plans for a medical school in Bangor, which will be delivered by a Plaid Cymru government, we will ensure that doctor training is sufficient to save the NHS in the regions of Wales. More than any party, we have pushed the need for more medical training in the Welsh regions. You only have to watch First Minister's questions from this week. There was a shocking lack of urgency on display when I challenged Labour's complacency on doctor training. Plaid Cymru will not let this one lie. We will keep our health services local. Under our plans, rural hospitals will not wither away. They will gain a new lease of life. And people here in the North East will understand more than anyone that the Welsh Government doesn't deliver for the whole of Wales. Plaid Cymru will turn Labour's failure on its head by being the only party which will put a fair deal for our regions into Welsh law. Plaid Cymru's vision for Wales is of a country where we can all live together without fear or threat, where we are good neighbours, showing kindness, cooperation and tolerance in our society, where we reject the scapegoating and hate-based politics that has grown as the cuts have doubled down. Last week, we saw racist graffiti in Grangetown in Cardiff, one of the most multicultural wards in the country. We have seen attacks on Muslims, on gay and trans people, and even on people for speaking Welsh in Wales. And at times like this, when this sort of politics is on the rise, it's not a surprise to see an increase in misogyny. I don't think it's a coincidence that this has happened as more and more women are saying time's up on sexual harassment. We must all do what we can to encourage those who have experienced harassment to come forward and to report it. We must also provide the support that they need. Our processes for dealing with allegations must also be robust and fair to everyone involved. I also want our culture to change to one where there is zero tolerance towards discrimination on the grounds of gender, race, sexual orientation, disability or gender identity. Plaid Cymru will work to create a culture that is free from intolerance. It's been 100 years since some women first won the right to vote. We have come a long way in that time, but we still have a long way to go before we achieve equality. We are still battling for equal wages. WASPy women are still battling for justice with their retirement age and pensions. We are still battling for decent funding for domestic abuse services and rape crisis centres. It's hard to accept that period poverty is still preventing some girls from properly participating in education. And I'd like to pay tribute here to the fantastic work of Councillors Ellen Stevens and Shelley Rhys-Owen, who have made the case and won the argument to provide free sanitary protection in all from the Cynhadledd schools. And we've just heard that £1 million has been allocated as a result of this campaign. In 2018, not one single girl should lose one single day of school because of the affordability of basic protection. And thanks to Plaid Cymru, in future, they won't. Conference, after the upheaval of last year's Westminster election, we must now turn our focus to the task of becoming the Government of Wales. At present, the national narrative for Wales is not one of progress. It's one of stagnation at best, decline at worst. Too many hopes are pinned on Westminster to deliver for us, to electrify our railways, to build a tidal lagoon, to get a good Brexit deal. Allowing the country next door to decide so many vital aspects of our daily lives hasn't worked in the past. Why does anybody think it'll work in the future? This is not as good as it gets for Wales, but we can only unleash our potential with a nation-building government of our own if we break the 2 decades of Labour status quo. We are the only party that has ever had an alternative First Minister candidate to Labour. It's us or them. But we need our own positive programme and our own alternative. We will only get to where we want to be if we're all pulling in the same direction, standing hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder. The theme of this conference is building a new nation. We will approach the next elections with 10 goals for government, setting national objectives to change Wales for the better. These national objectives will bring together this party's vision and values and will appeal to people from all backgrounds and communities. One of those objectives will be to stand up for our National Health Service to enable it to succeed. Labour's approach to managing problems in the NHS has been to drop or move targets. Take the ambulance service, for example. Everyone knew it wasn't doing what it should have been and that life-saving paramedics needed greater support. But rather than invest in the service and support paramedics, they dropped the target. Then they claimed it was getting better. If you're having a stroke, for example, a serious medical emergency in anyone's book, there is no target to get you in on time. An ambulance can arrive 10 hours later and find a patient dead from a stroke, as has happened. And yet this is not a failure of response times. It's not good enough. But Plaid Cymru isn't just against Labour's mismanagement. We are for a public NHS which is innovative and responsive. A Plaid Cymru government will reintroduce target times for amber calls where the clinical evidence supports prompt responses. Urgent amber calls, including for strokes, will see a renewed focus on getting patients the care they need. Where our frontline staff and patients have been failed, Plaid Cymru will step in to save our services. In recent months, I've made a personal commitment to push the Welsh Government to improve mental health outcomes, especially for younger people. While the taboo around talking about mental health is being lifted, we need better services to make people well. With the right support, mental health difficulties can be relieved just like any other illnesses. But if people are not treated, as is the case for far too many in Wales, there is little hope. Last March, 87% of children were waiting less than a month for child and adolescent mental health services, what's known as the CAMS service. This month, almost half of children and young people had to wait over a month for that first critical appointment. And now, almost 1 in 5 are waiting for more than 10 weeks. Now, that 5th child is not just a statistic. That child could be on the edge of a crisis and is being let down. That child is being let down by the Labour Welsh Government. Every time I have raised this with the First Minister, he's moved the goalposts. It's not good enough. I want to see a rights-based approach, building on the precedent where Wales has legislated for children's rights. A Plaid Cymru government will create a right to mental health care for young people. Health boards will face fines if children continue to be failed. Increased resources for health boards must see waiting times reduced. A Plaid Cymru government will increase those resources, knowing that services are starting from a low base. We'll also make sure that the wide range of options outside of CAMS are available, including preventative measures, like dealing with what professionals now call adverse childhood experiences, caused by problems associated with job security, financial insecurity, abuse, or addiction. Our message to young people is, you are valued. You are our next engineers, our nurses, our builders. Thankfully, most young people will never require mental health services. But for those who do, Plaid Cymru government will always support you and stand with you. Conference, you might have noticed that I can have a streak of the anti-establishment in me. I've always felt a need to fight against the system which is failing the people which it's meant to support. In Wales, the 20-year reign of the Labour establishment in Cardiff has led to a stagnation of our politics, our ambition of our future. Under Labour, your child is more likely to grow up in poverty than if they were born anywhere else in the UK. It's Labour who are in power as we continue to watch the use of emergency food banks grow. Devolution gave us the option of a different way, a better way. Yet the Welsh Labour establishment has chosen the same old, tired way. A lack of imagination, vision, action that means that Wales is left behind, that our people are being abandoned. Their hypocrisy is astounding. A matter of days after the Westminster general election, where they promised to scrap tuition fees in Wales, they announced a rise. Under Labour, dialysis services at Wrexham, just down the road from here, have been outsourced to a private company. Under Labour, private companies are making profits out of the education system. 2 of the same failed policies that we've seen introduced by the Tories in England. Hypocrisy is when they claim to be on the side of the worker, yet refuse to lift the public sector pay cap. Hypocrisy is when 7 times Labour votes down a chance to ban 0 hours contracts. Hypocrisy is Labour in Wales. With their customary arrogance, they assume their false promises are free, but I'm here to make sure that their hypocrisy costs them. We are the Party of Wales, and we must now take the next step towards being the Government of Wales. Our mission remains to reignite hope, and that means taking action. It means building up our communities. It means going against the tide of history to build a better future, against the desperation of the Westminster establishment, against the dead hand of Labour in Wales. It means taking action for hope, for ambition, for taking power and giving that power back to people. Action to build a free Wales, a new nation, a new Wales. Now is our time. Ymlaen.